Among the many strategic decisions that made China's success, one must be mentioned: the opening and reform policy. A documentary is included in this chapter, written and presented by historian Michael Wood, professor of public history at the University of Manchester, who is an outsider as well as a frequent visitor to China since 1980s. A prominent broadcaster and filmmaker as well, Professor Wood will tell you the story of Chinese opening and reform from his perspective.
China today is a spectacular vision of modernity, a place of dynamism and opportunity. Every visitor, especially if you've been coming since the 1980s as I have, is astonished by the scale of its growth and the sheer speed of change. It was only in the mid-20th century that China went through its own industrial revolution, struggling to catch up with the West. "40 years ago, China was still an agricultural country, as it had been throughout its history. Now, Deng Xiaoping returned from the countryside, where he'd been sent into exile to do manual labor. An elder statesman now, he'd always been a stalwart defender of the Communist Party. But in exile, he'd seen the system had failed to improve the lives of the mass of the people.
老百姓的生活很苦大。我从出生到20岁，不管是冬天夏天，都没有穿过鞋。那个老百姓啊，有辆自行车啊，就感到很富有的啦。
In Deng's view, China's deep-rooted social and economic problems were the product of its history.
He has a very strong sense of history. He said that China was a leading nation over 1,000 years at least, actually up to the Qing Dynasty, to Zheng He. Then China began to close down. Then China's
future could look like.
Deng was one of the few communist leaders in China who was exposed to the outside world. He spent almost 6 years in France as a part work, part study student. So this kind of international outlook helped him.
He wanted to see the latest science and technology, but he also wanted to know about the lives of the ordinary people.
He asked specifically. He has avoided the radical approach, and so he took a middle course, focusing on improving people's living standards. That's the key message of Deng Xiaoping.
Back home, the reforms began in the south, the historic dynamo of China's economy. And they would change China and the world. In the 40 years since, even the farmers in the famine lands of Anhui would open their own small businesses. Food on every plate now. While the cities of the south will become the world's biggest manufacturing base.
That one society that's that huge could change so rapidly, it's just staggering. It's just staggering, and none of us predicted it. In the 20th century, if you say, what leader did more to change the world than any other, I think you have to say Deng Xiaoping.
With that, closed our chapters on Chinese history. I really think China as a country has one of the most, if not the richest history in the entire world, which means it is a lot for you to take in. Well, history requires patience and repetition. In the next chapters, we will come back to history from time to time As the Chinese idiom goes, draw lessons from history.